Of all the incredible things humans have invented, airplanes that fly across oceans, computers that fit in our pockets, rockets that fly into space, one of the most universally loved is a squeaky little child's plaything. You guessed it, the rubber duck. It doesn't fly, it doesn't swim particularly well, it doesn't even quack on its own unless you squeeze it hard enough. But somehow this chubby-cheeked bird has conquered bathtubs, toy stores, charity races, and even earned its place in the Guinness World Records. So how did a lump of rubber shaped like a duck float its way into human history? Today, we're splashing into the bubbly, weird, and surprisingly global story of the rubber duck. This is Guess What? Before we had squeaky bath buddies, humans were already obsessed with ducks. Ducks show up everywhere in folklore. Ancient Egyptians kept ducks as food, but also carved them into tomb art, because apparently, nothing says eternal life like a side of roast duck. In Chinese culture, mandarin ducks symbolize love and fidelity. In Europe, ducks often appeared in children's rhymes and fairy tales. And of course, in the natural world, baby ducks are adorable enough to melt the iciest heart. But when it came to toys, early ducks weren't squishy. They were carved out of wood, hammered out of tin, or stitched from fabric. Kids loved them, though let's be honest, a tin duck in the bathtub is less fun companion and more trip to the emergency room. Still, these early toy ducks set the stage. The world was ready for a duck that could survive the water without rusting. Enter the 1800s, the age of vulcanized rubber. Charles Goodyear figured out how to make rubber durable, flexible, and waterproof. Suddenly, the material was everywhere. Shoes, tires, raincoats, and yes, toys. The very first rubber ducks? They weren't cute. They didn't squeak. They didn't even float. They were solid chew toys meant for teething babies. Imagine handing your toddler a heavy lump of rubber shaped vaguely like a duck and saying, "Here, bite this." But eventually, manufacturers hollowed them out. They floated, they squeaked, and they became more than a chew toy. They became a companion in the tub. Kids were thrilled. Parents, less so. Each squeak chipped away at their sanity. Moment of silence for parents' minds. This was the moment the modern duck waddled into history. Now here's where the story gets a little more official. In 1947, a Russian-born American sculptor named Peter Ganin patented a floating duck toy, marketed simply as the duck toy. It wasn't just any bath companion. It was the first mass-produced floating rubber duck. Millions were sold, cementing the duck's role as the iconic bath buddy. While no one person can truly claim to have invented the rubber duck outright, Ganin's design is the one most historians credit as the first true modern duck. Now here's a question. Why are most rubber ducks yellow? You'd think they'd be modeled after the mallard, the most common duck in the world, but nope. Mallards as adults are green, brown, and gray, and as ducklings, they're brown, spotted, and, let's just say, the ugly duckling was probably a lost mallard. There was, however, another duck that was much more popular in America, the Pekin duck, imported from China in the 1800s. Unlike the mallard, the Pekin was larger, so they had a higher meat yield, easier to domesticate, and tasted less gamier than the mallard. And while the adults are snowy white, their ducklings? Bright, fluffy yellow. Which means when toy makers needed inspiration for the perfect bathtub buddy, they looked to the baby Pekin, not the mallard. From a marketing psychology standpoint, yellow is one of the happiest and most attention-grabbing colors, especially when your audience is babies and young children. Combine the two, and you've got a marketing dream. By the mid-20th century, the classic duck had been standardized. Bright yellow body, orange beak, big, friendly smile. That was the golden template. And then came the cultural explosion. In 1970, Sesame Street gave us Ernie's legendary ode, "Rubber Ducky, you're the one." Not only was it adorable, it actually climbed the Billboard Top 40. A man singing romantically to a bath toy became a legitimate hit single. From that point on, the rubber duck wasn't just a toy, it was an icon. If you didn't have one in your bath, you weren't just missing bubbles, you were missing pop culture history. Of all the stories in rubber duck history, none is stranger than the Great Duck Escape of 1992. A shipping container fell overboard in the Pacific, spilling nearly 29,000 bath toys into the ocean. The group included turtles and frogs too, but it was the ducks that captured imaginations. Nicknamed the Friendly Floaties, these little escapees rode the waves for decades. Some landed in Alaska. Some drifted through the Arctic ice and popped up in Scotland. Oceanographers even tracked them to study currents. Yes, scientists literally published research papers based on lost bathtub ducks. Picture this. You spend years of your life grinding through biology textbooks, late nights in labs, earning degrees, all to finally become a respected scientist, only to chase squeaky yellow ducks across the globe. That's dedication, or madness, maybe both. When the Friendly Floaties started washing up, newspapers went wild. Kids on beaches would bring them home like treasures. Some collectors even sold them online for hundreds of dollars, because apparently a barnacle-encrusted bathtub toy is the holy grail of beachcombing. There was even a rumor, half true, half myth, that a handful of those ducks ended up in museum exhibits. Not bad for toys that were supposed to be stocking stuffers. Even decades later, the floaties still wash ashore, faded and battered but instantly recognizable. Proof that rubber ducks don't just float, they migrate. But it doesn't stop with ocean journeys. Rubber ducks are also world record setters. Charity organizations hold duck races, where thousands of numbered ducks are dumped into rivers. First duck across the finish line wins, and the money goes to a good cause. And then there are the giants. Dutch artist Florentine Hoffman built enormous inflatable ducks, some taller than a 5-story building. They floated in harbors worldwide, drawing crowds of thousands. People who wouldn't cross the street to see an art exhibit lined up just to take selfies with a duck the size of Godzilla. The message was simple: ducks make people happy, whether they're 5 inches long or 50 feet tall. So why do we love them so much? Psychologists say rubber ducks hit a sweet spot. They're bright, they're safe, they trigger nostalgia, that warm memory of being a kid splashing in the tub. There's even a professional use. Programmers practice rubber duck debugging. When stuck on code, they explain the problem out loud to a rubber duck. Talking it out often reveals the solution. Psychologists also point out something about the humans, especially kids, are hardwired to react to high-pitched sounds. It's the same reason babies laugh at squeaky shoes or why dog toys drive pets wild. The squeak makes the duck feel alive, like it's answering you back. Some therapists even use rubber ducks in play therapy to help kids open up emotionally. Turns out, a squeaky friend is sometimes easier to talk to than a serious adult with a clipboard. Whether for comfort or coding, the duck earns its keep. Today, rubber ducks aren't just bath buddies. They've gone full-on collectible. Pirate ducks, superhero ducks, glow-in-the-dark ducks, you name it, someone's made it. There are museums dedicated entirely to duck collections. Guinness has awarded records to people who own thousands. One collector in the U.S. has more than 9,000 unique ducks. Imagine explaining that hobby on a first date. Even pop culture keeps reinventing them. Rubber duck emojis, duck memes, ducks dressed as celebrities. It's a toy that refuses to fade, constantly reshaping itself while staying exactly the same. And just when you thought the rubber duck had peaked, it's made a comeback. On car dashboards, all over the world, drivers are putting little themed ducks behind the wheel with them. Pirate ducks, superhero ducks, anime ducks, you name it. At first, it started as a quirky little novelty, but then it snowballed. Suddenly, you see them everywhere, in trucks, on dashboards, clipped to bikes. Some people even trade them like collectibles. And here's the surprising part. This wasn't pushed by a celebrity endorsement. It began in the Jeep community during the pandemic. A Canadian Jeep owner named Allison Parliament left a rubber duck and a note saying, "Nice Jeep," as a gesture of kindness. That little act, now called Duck Duck Jeep, went viral. Jeep owners started ducking each other worldwide, leaving ducks on dashboards as a friendly surprise. Parliament sadly passed away in 2024, but her idea lives on in every duck you see bouncing on a dashboard. The trend grew beyond Jeeps to all kinds of cars. Social media amplified it, novelty shops stocked up, and soon, ducks became the new Funko Pops of the road. The best part? Most people can't even explain why they bought one. The duck just felt right. And that's the magic of it. The rubber duck doesn't need a reason. It's joy in plastic form, and joy doesn't need an explanation. So, from ancient tomb art to global art installations, from chew toys to debugging tools, to kindness movements and dashboard mascots, the rubber duck has waddled through history in the strangest, happiest way possible. It might not be as world-changing as the light bulb or the wheel, but it's proof that sometimes the simplest inventions make the biggest splash. That's today's episode of Guess What? If you enjoyed floating through history with me, hit subscribe, because next time we'll uncover another everyday thing with an extraordinary story. Until then, stay curious, and don't forget to squeeze the duck.